Well, hi there, racing fans, and welcome to another edition of Winning Ways, where I'm not very happy this weekend, and it sounds like my partner here is very happy.
Absolutely, a great weekend, good racing, very good football. I'm very pleased to see that Spurs beat Arsenal for all those Arsenal...
I hoped you wouldn't mention that.
I had to. I wanted to just put the record, and Man United were extremely fortunate, as were Man City. Yeah. As were Chelsea. It was a very rough weekend, and I feel sorry for Avram Grant, the African Cup of Nations. They got beat on penalties. You remember Chelsea, Man United years ago? He got beat on penalties. So
he's never won a major cup.
No, this was Avram Grant's chance.
About four or five of them.
So he took Ghana to the finals, but they couldn't score.
Well, I thought he did a marvellous job getting Ghana to the finals anyway.
So did I.
Any overseas coach that can get these sides there.
Yeah. Ivory Coast are the winners.
Yeah. Okay, so is that the Toure brothers or something?
Toure.
Toure.
The Toure de frauds.
Just interesting about the best weekend of the best game of the weekend was the Arsenal-Tottenham game. It was a very, very good game.
Very good game of football. Arsenal never really pitched up, and I think Spurs deserved to win. A bit doer. I think Everton, the other derby, were very defensive. They nearly snatched it late, but Liverpool were the better side. It was an interesting weekend. And then, of course, Six Nations for the gamblers. Six Nations. Well, Friday night we had. It's not usual, James. It was a tough game on Friday.
Most people missed it. England,
tough
Wales
doer game. England very strong second half.
Yeah. But looking at the rugby, you know, after you saw the Sharks beating Toulouse and the Bulls hammering Saracens, you'd still think the Southern Hemisphere sides might be the better sides.
Year. World Cup finals this year. I'm with the Southern Hemisphere teams.
I'm with the Southern African team.
Namibia and South Africa.
Southern African teams. Right. Yeah. Let's go into some horse racing, and we'll start with 3 to follow. Right, well, we're going to Kenilworth for the first of our 3 to follow, and we go to the juveniles and have a look at this one. Brian Bernard, Dean Canema. Let's go and have a look at Shap Shap, drawn right on the outside here, and absolutely hashes up the break.
Yeah, James, I was listening to Stan Ely, who I love listening to, and he said this horse was way over 500 kilos, a big horse, and Dean Canema is not the man who runs his juveniles early, so they were quite surprised to see this in here. It must be showing them something. It's last in Brian Bernard Silks. And against a field that looked quite useful, it runs a cracking good race. The winner is Captain Swarovski in a great duel with Shakar.
Yeah, they were the top two on the board, but Shap Shap not in the picture at this stage. He's right down the inside at the back. He's even further behind that lot.
And he's alongside Justus also.
Yeah, and then he's a great big brown horse. Looks like a very nice horse indeed. And he goes right down the inside.
James, I think he's a Noordhoek flyer, if memory serves me.
Noordhoek flyer, that's
he's a Noordhoek flyer.
Right.
Very interesting to see.
Yeah.
And you can see him with the noseband, 2 off the right now, if I can use that term. And remember, he's walked out the gate as he goes to the fence here, James.
Yeah, he goes to the fence under just a nice little cuddly ride, just push him along, give him a couple of taps with a stick, and he will come on a ton from this run, and I would think they might be quite a nice horse. Nice to see Noordhoek Flyer stepping out some that look like
Linton Ryan showed me one in Durban. It was the most magnificent horse. I think Dean might have bought it because Dean had Noordhoek Flyer, but whoa, there's some very, very attractive horses. Yeah,
Gary Player Stud. Yeah. They're in charge of him. Let's go and have a look at the next one. We go to Turfentine, Firster, and this is Master Switch from the Jeff Woodruff stable. This is quite a nice horse too.
Yeah, the customary downpour came at Turfentine, and this horse having his debut. It was a very good race for Jeff. Look how he walks out the gate. He doesn't know much about it. He walks out the gate. He's got one behind him or two behind him. Now they're both, well, one I know the Azzy's horse is an unraced horse. So the unraced horse is very scraggly at the start, and Funny enough, Brian Bernard's colours taking up the front here.
Yeah, that's J Boy in front there.
Yeah, that J Boy runs a very good race because everyone thought, well, the right horse would probably be Pierre Stradom on Down Under, who runs up second and doesn't go on with it. But this horse is a long way back, James.
Yeah, he's about 5 from the back there, in being scrubbed along by Gavlarina, not really knowing what it's all about. And he's bred to go a bit of a trip. He's by Jet Master out of Al Mufti, man, bred by Fastfontein. Expensive yearling, this.
Yeah, he looked a very nice horse. And you can see the reins coming down. So his debut run is in a passing monsoon. So it's a great experience for him.
It's actually called a Johannesburg Thunderstorm.
Okay, the passing monsoon is called a Johannesburg Thunderstorm. Thank you, James. And he's very green up the stretch when he comes to challenge your winner, who's Summit, who's a stablemate, who runs a very good race. Summit's in the yellow. He's behind on the inside of him here, but puts his run up the outside of him.
Yeah, and here he starts going through horses, getting the hang of what it's all about. J-Boy's hanging on in front, and he runs on really well, this horse.
Yeah, now Summit's come through beautifully with Mr. Orcherez. That's coming through to Down Under, is in the black and white, is starting to cry enough. J-Boy is sticking to his guns, but here he comes on the outside. For all intents and purposes, it looks like he's going to win. But he's very green, James. I saw the head on. He doesn't know much about it. It's a very good debut by Master Switch.
It's interesting that Akash Osheruz rides a lot of these horses for Jeff and gets him home. 66 to 1 this was. The horse we picked out was certainly a lot more fancied than this was.
He's a very good young rider.
Akash?
Yes.
Very nice.
Great name if you're punting.
Yeah, yeah.
Get on Akash.
Yeah. Okay, so well, let's move on to something that's just as well named, Alma. The Dynasty filly, back on the poly track, back after a horrific trip to Johannesburg. And this is the true Alma. This filly is very good, and I don't think the handicappers got close to her.
Yeah, she's very good. A lot of people are going to jump on the bandwagon that she's better on the poly, but remember when Arthur Marcus rode her on the turf? She won an absolute hack canter. She's very good, this filly. She's by Dynasty, and I thought she had her work to do because Alarm had won so well, and City of Athens was well in at the weights. But Fish Sturgeon knows this girl, and you'll watch when they turn for home, James. She's absolutely hack cantering.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely no race. Alarm, I thought she was flattered by her last win, and as it showed, I know that the third horse, City of Athens, got to within ahead of her this time on 3.5 kilo better terms. Maybe that made the difference, but Alma did look like the right filly here. She gave weight to all of them, and she gave them an absolute hiding.
Absolute hiding. This is a great performance, and Fish Sturgeon's got a relaxed and fourth with the white noseband. And Frank has always said to me that this is a top filly, and he's been proven right. Well, she's certainly going the right way. She could run anywhere, this girl. But what amazed me, as I started swinging for home, I had a look at the dangers, and I thought, wow, look at Fish sitting there.
Yeah, well, he was swimming there.
Yeah, sorry, look at Fish swimming there.
Yeah,
he's going swimmingly, James.
Yeah, swimmingly in the white and green colours. And Frank's got to be very pleased with this filly because, you know, as we said, the Johannesburg.
He's done very well for I think they're Russian clients, the Biffovs.
Yeah.
He's done very well for them, and they'll be going back to the well for him because he's doing a great job for them. And just here, Alarm gets nudged along. Sean's hard at work on City of Athens, and look at Fish going to the outside.
Well, that's why we picked out this filly to follow, because she just canters past them and puts daylight between herself and the rest of them without actually even drawing a deep breath. You know, here she just gets a tap down the neck. Okay, let's go and do it. And she just pulls away from him and puts miles between her and the
This
rest.
was very impressive. Fish is now just punching out with the hands. He's glanced to his right a couple of times, and he realizes that this is in a different parish, never mind street.
Yeah, well, that's why we think that this filly, I know we picked her up early as one to follow, but the way she won there, she'll win a decent race. She'll win him a group
She
race
looks
on
a
this
stakes
poly.
horse, definitely a stakes horse, this.
So very nice to see the daughter Dynasty really showing that she can go on either surface, although I do believe she's much better on the poly. And we will go and have a look at the blast from the past, and this is an interesting one. Thanks to Byron.
Yeah,
you
Byron
you taught that kid well, didn't you?
I taught him very well from day one.
Yeah.
Love your racing. And
Yeah.
he used to record races, and And please note, James, the commentators, our man, Graham Hawkins.
Graham Hawkins, he's one of the best commentators.
He's a great. He should call more. Graham Hawkins should still call races.
I think there's a restraint of trade that he probably has.
I doubt it. Restraint of trade. I doubt it. We should get Hawkins back in the country, even if it's just for select races.
He loves calling.
Does he love it?
Oh, he loves
then
it.
he should be. Whenever
it,
he goes and auctioneers around the country, he should call a race as well.
1997, Keith Hepburn Stakes. See if you can think of who won this while they're running.
Now Headstrong sees daylight and he rips through. Headstrong, much the better on the day.
But Espumante hits the front in the Epitome Challenge. And ladies and gentlemen, it's all Espumante in the final 50.
Europa Point comes into the lead now. And it's Europa Point who sails on by. And Well Wish is going to win it and win it well. But Ilabella's in a race of her own in the South African Oaks. And she won by 7.
Back in, they're all set, and away they go. Record Edge was the first to react along the inside. Secretary General is going up there. Centenarian is on the far side, also in a very handy position. But now it's Jungle Messenger that races through between horses to go and grab the lead. Jungle Messenger from Centenarian in second. Cape Hunt is third. Secretary General is racing in fourth position and then follows along the inside. Record Edge, they're being tracked by Hardball. Behind these runners, Marisco and National Emblem. Further back is Delta Dash, and then comes Divine Force. Outside of that is Dance on Wood and Sia Penny. The course record holder here at Turpentine is the back marker. They're in line for home now with 800 metres to go, and Jungle Messenger setting a hot gallop is the lead by 5 lengths from Centenarian in second. Racing outside of that is Cape Hunt. They were followed by Record Edge, and then comes Hardball with National Emblem up on the outside. Marisco's in behind these runners. Divine Force still quite far back. He's got to deliver his challenge right up on the outside, now starting to kick on strongly. As they come to the 300 now, and Record Edge has hit the front from National Emblem, putting in a great effort up the outside. Centenarian is back towards the inside, but National Emblem has hit the front. Divine Force is coming strongly. National Emblem and Divine Force is wearing down with each side, but National Emblem, what a run. National Emblem has won it from Divine Force, and Sia Penny came from the tail of the field to run third. Record Edge, a cracking run after a 2-year rest in fourth.
Well, thanks to Byron and his dad.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to be showing a lot of these because he's got this archive of all these races, which are just fabulous to be able to watch.
I enjoyed watching, I enjoyed listening to it, and I enjoy seeing a stallion win there that I've trained many of the national emblems.
Progeny, yeah.
Progeny, thank you. His progeny have gone on to be greats with Shay Shay campaigning all over the world.
He's a great horse from the moment he arrived. The funny thing was
Jooster a shareholder in this?
Yeah.
This is the start.
This was the start of the whole Marcus Jooster destiny. Collie Fram was a partner in him.
That's right.
Owned the. It was in Collie Fram's colours. And you know, thanks to our assistant producer, Stephen's brother.
Stephen's brother
told us
who the partner was. No, James. That was Charlie Laird. Was that Rhys van Wyk?
Rhys van Wyk, yeah.
Very good horse. He loved a 1400 and he ran third in the Vodacom Derby in July.
How was the Divine Forces run? Came from Stone Last.
Yeah.
You remember Jose Michiel?
That's right. Was that with Ferraris at that stage?
Yeah, Ferraris. That's right. I think it was David at that time.
Yeah.
David Ferraris. He was in charge of that.
Good to see the old champions. There were good horses in that field, James.
Well, we're gonna bring up a few of these. You know, we've got Guineases and all types of races to show you, and we think this might be more fun. We've certainly had very positive feedback so far. I know we don't have any lead-ins or anything, but just to watch these old horses run. The youngsters watch this with amazement, and the old-timers really brings back great memories for them.
Which category do we fall into?
We middle of the
road.
Yeah,
I thought so. Thank you, James.
Very middle of the road. Half grey and quite old.
Goats.
But everyone wants to put us out to retirement.
But we're nowhere near pasture. We're nowhere near pasture, James. Two good-looking boys, nowhere near pasture.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to go and have a look at the plum of the week.
Circle makes an early move. No Dubai needs some running room, still got 6 lengths to make up. Highly Regal the leader, Likeness is on the inside. No Dubai now sees daylight and starts to warm up. It's Highly Regal the leader, and No Dubai now coming home powerfully on the outside. No Dubai comes exploding into the lead. Mariah Ann is running on from behind, but No Dubai won it. Mariah Ann second, third Highly Regal, and the fourth place will go to Likeness.
Well, young Dylan's pretty pleased. If you backed this on Interbet, you would be equally pleased, because the odds against, most of the time on the Interbet, you'd have to take 6 to 10 with your bookmaker, or 7 to 10. But Interbet, you could have got better than even money at a lot of the stages up to the time of the race. And young Dylan had ridden it twice before, but it looked like he had maybe not done it right on this one, but he got lucky.
Jumping up in the distance and being by Archie Penko, and Archie had done so well down in the Stayers race with his progeny down there. I think they gave it a chance and it won well. It certainly, not much of it. She's not a big
light thing, isn't it?
Very light thing, but she can run, James.
Yeah, she certainly can. The poly seems to suit her. She did look like the bet of the weekend and the way to start off your weekend. And we certainly on Interbet were lucky to get even money, or 11 to 10 about her. Let's go and have a look at current affairs.
Twice there last time, and going for 1,200,000. Sold for 1,200,000.
Welcome to another edition of Current Affairs. We had stakes races up on the half L, 2 big races at Turvendine, Group 3s, nothing else around the country. But interesting news, people retiring, horses doing well, new drug tests. So let's get rolling straight into it. And the first race we're going to show you is the 3 Troikas Stakes. It's a Grade 3 race for fillies. And all the rage here was a horse called Laser Star, who had sprinted 4 times and won 4 times. And by Toreador, there were question marks. Was she going to stay? Let's go and have a look at the race.
That one with Chili Chocolate's got 5 to go. Then Bichette and By Jove, Silver Class, and the back marker now is Pennington Sands. 600 out, about to turn for home in the 3 Troikas Stakes, and the leader is Run for Revelry. La Manga in second, Sensible Lover, Laser Star moves up towards the inside. Then comes Brown Sugar, Silver Class, and Gold Cup Girl. 300 to go, and here comes Laser Star up to Sensible Lover down the inside. Bichette's got 2 to go. Further back to Silver Class, it's Laser Star from Sensible Lover. The 3 Troikas, Laser Star on the outside. Sensible Lover's coming back. Sensible Lover, Laser Star. You couldn't get closer. Sensible Lover has beaten Laser Star. Bichette third. Silver Class. Then came Pennington Sands. Behind that was By Jove, Chili Chocolate, Brown Sugar.
Well, there is the question. Great run by Laser Star, who was run out of it by Sensible Lover. The question we're going to put to James, because you're the fundi here. Was it the weight? Or
I would think so, 7.5 kilos.
Was it 7.5?
Yeah, I think that at the end result, when Laser Star ran past Sensible Lover, it looked like it was going to win. And, you know, weight stops trains, as they say.
Yeah,
even freight trains.
Absolutely. So, James, a lot of people have said, it didn't get the trip. And I think there's more to it.
I think that she came from behind the winner to run past her, and the weight got her at the death. It didn't look like she was stopping.
Yeah.
When they don't get the trip, they stop.
Yeah,
and she didn't look like she was stopping. She just had to give her, well, 6 kilos.
Level weights over a mile, James, your call on that?
I'm not sure Laser Star will get the mile.
Yeah, sure.
But she certainly settles beautifully.
Yeah.
Ormond's got her to settle in. The last start, they settled her in rather than use her speed. She settled beautifully in this race. She's very, very good, and even very, very good.
They've always got the option of coming back down.
Yeah, get beaten in these type of races. The interesting thing about Sensible Lover is she's Australian bred, but she's out of a South African mare.
Who's the mare?
Almar. Do you remember Almar?
Yes, I do. I do. Was it a staying
Almar
mare?
by Al Mufti, yeah.
Yes.
Moira Hinton, I think, raced her.
Yes, I remember.
She was a very good filly. She raced for the Ferrarises. So that must have been a bit bittersweet for Ormond. You know? His ex-assistant, Y.O. Morwing, beats him with a horse out of a mare that, you know, the family was involved
you're right.
with.
It's a little incestuous, that result. But James, Sensible Lover, have you ever found any of those? Is that erroneously named?
I never had any of those at all. I never had any, you know. So I don't know much about lovers.
But anyway, well done. Let's not forget, Sensible Lover. Congratulations to everyone involved with this horse. It's won the 3 Troikas, and Marco van Rensburg also popped into KZN for a winner over the weekend. Well done to him. Well done to Wyo, who also had another winner over the weekend. And it'll be interesting to see where Laser Star goes
most
next.
of them, getting back to the previous topic, most of the ones that I've had are named after the next race winner. So, you know,
okay, let's have a look.
Let's go and have a look at the Tony Ruffle Stakes.
And Capitan will bring them home in the Tony Ruffle by a length and a half from Bergen second. Muta Macken is going to challenge towards their inside. Further back to Belong to Me. Then comes Macdelago, 4 to go. Unparalleled starting to move through. Prince of Orange front rank and light the way. 300 to go and Muta Macken strikes the frontier. Goes 2 clear from Belong to Me. Unparalleled is still 4 lengths adrift. Further back to Berg, it's Muta Macken. Belong to Me. Unparalleled is now starting a spurt. It's still Muta Macken, Belong to Me. Unparalleled is finishing fast. Belong to Me. And Muta Macken, Belong to Me. Beats Muta Macken. Unparalleled third. Close for fourth. Light the way. Prince of Orange, then Berg. Further back came Capitan Macdelago.
Well, there we go. A very good race. Unparalleled. Had it all to do in the ground that he really loves. He came from a long way off them and ran a great race. But the stablemate, Belong to Me, has been a very good horse, James.
Yeah, he's an Antonius Pius. He stands at Highlands, and this is a horse that's just bubbling under there. He looks like he could be quite a good stallion, Antonius Pius. They've started to work him out, and this was a good win for him, another stakes winner for him, because I think he's had a couple already.
Yeah, that's right. And Muta Macken found support. You know, Michael de Kock's team is strong. This Australian horse ran a very good race, James.
Very good race. He thought it looked like he had it won going through the 200-meter mark. Unparalleled came from a long way back. I thought they'd probably be a little closer than this, but
in that ground,
just came from a long way off them, and he might be the best. You know, he gave weight as well.
Yeah,
and in that type of ground, to give that type of weight, maybe.
Correct. It was a very good run by Unparalleled. I don't think he lost much in defeat, having come from a long way off. A horse who did run quite well was with 56.5 was Prince of Orange, James.
Yeah, that ran on nicely.
That Striker straight
Roy Magna's horse.
Yeah,
Striker's game.
Striker's game, running on from there.
Yeah.
Right, so there we go. We've now told you about the 2 races we saw down here. We've got a little bit of international news that have come about. And James, the first thing we should start off with is this new cobalt testing. Now, they've got a team going out where they're going to get together for a global research program on cobalt, where they want to cut the dose in half. Basically, when they do the testing on this, it's 200 milligrams per litre of urine. They want to cut it in half, and they want to get a worldwide sort of policy in place. They're going to the Asian conference, in May, and then it's all going to be finalized in June in New York, I believe.
Well, just as well. You know, cobalt is extremely dangerous and toxic to horses.
Absolutely.
And it has been a problem, and I think that the quicker you get these type of things sorted out. But talking about that, the British have taken a big step against anabolic steroids. They really put
zero tolerance. That's what James is just alluding to. Is very interesting. The British board have now said that any horse that arrives into the country, they initially aimed it at the Americans, but any horse coming to the country, a hair sample will be taken, which will give you the history of that horse if it's ever had steroids. They don't need any urine. They don't need any other samples, blood. All they're going to do is take a hair sample, and it'll give you the history of that horse if it's ever had anabolic steroids. So that's a tough call. A zero tolerance, James.
Well, that's exactly what the anabolic steroid stance is now, worldwide. Zero tolerance. No chance of you using it. And funny enough, there's a guy called Lake in Australia, what's his first name, who was a very, very flash trainer in the early 2000s. He trained Stuart Lake, or he's built into a very big stable, and I see he was got with 3 charges of stanozol.
Recently?
Yeah, recently. Him and another trainer down there in the deep south, they were caught with stanozol positives. And the Americans have a very interesting system. What they do is they give them a suspension. So he's not allowed to train horses for 60 days, okay? And he paid a $1,000 fine. You know.
Okay, James, just touching on the anabolic steroid issue. In this country, with a vet, you can apply to a vet to aid an ailing horse. Is that correct?
I think that's the sort of basis of it, but basically they are banned. You know, they're outlawed completely, which is a good thing. And we were at the forefront of getting this whole thing done, because anabolic steroids have no benefit in horse racing. They just are an absolute no-no. Anyway, let's move on to AP McCoy, made the news.
The legendary AP McCoy. The dancer. He's going to take on Benny van der Merwe, I believe.
Yeah, well, they say every top sportsman that retires goes on Strictly Come Dancing. So they asked AP McCoy if he wanted to go. After he won the Hennessy Gold Cup. He won the Hennessy Gold Cup on the weekend, which he never won in Ireland. Okay. And he was ecstatic about it, obviously. You know,
about the win or the dancing?
No, about the win. He wasn't so ecstatic about the dancing. When they said to him, and AP now, obviously you're getting ready to go on Strictly Come Dancing. Yeah, he certainly danced away from the question. Yeah. He said he's not got 2 left feet. He's not very athletic, which I would think would be the understatement of the year.
James, is he going to retire at the end of this racing year?
Yeah, or the racing season.
Racing season, same thing. So, a legend goes. What's he in his 40s? Eh?
He's just the most amazing guy. I think as a jockey, he's probably up there with the best that have ever sat on a racehorse. You know, he's just brilliant.
Tony McCoy, legend.
And talking about other things, Frankie, talking about jockeys, won the big race in Qatar. He's riding there at the moment. So he won on a horse called Dubday, which is an interesting horse. He was the horse that was taken out when that horse broke down with Richard Hughes. Mike de Kock's horse broke down in the Shima, I think it was.
Mars?
Yeah, Mars.
Okay.
And this horse, Dubday, was the horse that was badly interfered with, but it won the big race in Qatar with Frankie aboard it.
Yeah. James, and I see Inglis had a sale.
Yeah, they're up about 32% average. So, you know, bloodstock sales are flying all over the world. We're going to be chatting to Peter Gibson, and he's involved with Bloodstock South Africa, as well as all types of other things. Going to be a very interesting chat here in your call. And just talking about South African horses, Mastermind won the race on Thursday night, won the sprint. Yeah, the VAR. He's a full brother to Schiffer, isn't he?
Yes, he's gone the 7 furlong, and he went it well. He went from the front, he did the hard way, won very well. He ran second in a Group 2 at Scottsville. Yeah. He's a very good horse.
Yeah, I think he is a good horse. And, you know, Mike has a way of picking these horses out and winning with them. And Costa de Laga, who was a dam sire of Museur, has been retired.
Yeah, Costa de Laga's thrown many great horses. I know David Raphael bought Rubik. And that was a very good horse. They sold 40% to Coolmore for 4 million Aussie. So
yeah, well, they said in the thing that they're lucky to have Rubik, and obviously there's that horse Manhattan Rain. I think he's by Costa de Laga. He's starting to fire.
He's starting to fire big time.
Yeah, he looks like he's a good sire. The other horse that died was Stay Gold, the Japanese horse.
Yeah,
sire of a Ferv, who ran second in the Arc 2 years in a row, and I think another horse of his ran second in the Arc 2. So he must be one of the only stallions that ever had, you know,
3 runner-ups.
3 runner-ups in the Arc. You know, certainly Japanese stallion, definitely. You know, there'd be no doubt about that. Of the rest of it, only the San Antonio and LA and California at Santa Anita was the interesting race of the weekend, because you had Shared Belief and California Chrome. Now they were the 2 horses that went forward to get the horse of the year.
Award,
And Shared Belief beat California Chrome. California Chrome went to the front. and did it the hard way, and he probably needed the run.
Two good horses, James.
Two very, very, very good horses. You know,
I see Bob Baffert's got the favourite for the Kentucky Derby now. It won the Group 3 this weekend, and Bob's on his way to getting another horse in the big race. James, they're on a system where you get points.
Yes.
You
have races that build up towards the Kentucky Derby, and you earn points.
Now, the question I'm going to ask, there is a squeak that Michael de Kock could have a runner in that race. How would they get his points from his international
campaigns?
Apparently,
that race is one of the points-earning races.
Okay.
They have races all over the world where you earn points to get into the Kentucky Derby, and they pick out the top 20 horses on points. Nothing to do with anything else. Nothing to do with your top 2-year-old in Peru.
The races tie you up.
Yeah, and you do see races come from Peru and those type of places. That end up getting in the Kentucky Derby, and they get in on this basis that they've earned enough points. So
yeah, well, the build-up started.
Yeah, the build-up started, and the build-up starting to Peter Gibson. So yeah. Is there anything else?
Yeah, throw a few tough ones at Peter.
Yeah, well,
you need to know what's going on.
You'll get the full works, because
excellent.
He's a man of many hats. We want to see where the hat firmly sits. Whether he's changing.
Don't let him off lightly, James.
Changing between his Trilby and his Panama. We don't want him in that boat. So
he could leave with a beret, James. Give him the gears.
With a red beret. That will be interesting this week. Yeah. Just watching the Parliament and the State of the Nation could be the watch of the week on the watch of the week on television could be very interesting. Thursday night at 7 o'clock. Spielberg tells us Thursday night 7 o'clock. Yeah. Get out there and well, we'll be watching Dubai racing. I'd rather watch Dubai racing.
Yeah.
So Paul, we will see you later, and we'll chat to Peter Gibson.
Lovely.
In your call.
Sold for 1,200,000.
And Pocket Power, the true champion, shows his class. He draws off and wins brilliantly. And River Chates is coming home late, but Pocket Power is out in front. He's trying to rewrite history, and Pocket Power goes on to win. Dancer's Daughter came in second.
Change hanging on near the line. Moment of change from Eurozone.
Well, there you go. If you'd like to go to the Perth sale, you get older Laff. Mace Roberts has been there a couple of times. He brought back a couple of quite good horses. I think Tropical Empire was one of them. But more importantly, we're going to move on and chat to a man who's been in the hot seat here wearing different hats before, Peter Gibson. He is the TBA's breed affairs man. He looks after breed affairs at the TBA and, more importantly, SA Export Trade Council. Peter, nice to have you here with us.
Thanks as usual, James.
Well, it's been a long road for you. You've had 10 years as on the Trade Council, and that might or might not have been very successful.
Look, I think you needed to look at the past role as two parts. One was obviously Horse Racing South Africa, which was the umbrella company that was represented by the major stakeholders of the industry. That was originally the South African Horse Import-Export Council, which was the origins of trying to get South African exports going. And therefore, under that umbrella, we looked after the quarantine station, which I think if you want to look back at the 10 years or 11 years that I ran it for, 50% of the time we were suspended. We had a very good run from 2006 until 2011 when we had the Marmara outbreak, but prior to that we were suspended, and after that we were suspended. So yes, I think that's fair to say that, you know, we sat 50% of the time waiting for systems to change. On the trade side, of course, we had a very different role, trying to encourage investment in and grow our exports whichever way they went out of the country.
Well, we certainly got investment into this country. We've got various sheikhs from all over the world. We've got the Irish arriving. They all buy horses. They win races with South African bred horses on Met Day, and no one knows who they are, but they sort of carry on and have a bit of fun. And you've always brought up a slide on how it works. Now, I think we should go into that first, because once you go into those slides, people then will understand or maybe refresh their memories as to how this whole thing works.
Yeah, and I think just as a sort of a starting statement, you know, I really represent the interests of trade on a national basis. You know, we simply want a solution to allow our industry to grow. And therefore, I'm not taking forward a view of the TBA Council. These are my experiences having been involved in this business for the last 10 years. So I think it does go back to the starting point of international trade, which is the OIE. As we know, that slide will show that it's a government-backed body, 178 countries. They develop on each disease codes or guidelines or standards based basically to facilitate trade. So they're wanting to enable trade to take place. So it's an advisory body, and they come up with recommendations. But the real key is that they want to facilitate safe international trade. And of course, the second part of that is the background, is that countries, between countries themselves, they negotiate protocols. These are between trading partners, using the code as a base so that they can draw from that experience in order to make a decision as to whether the importation from a country is safe or not. And really that boils down to a health certificate, which is a set of import conditions.
Right, then we move on to
Can we just stop there for a sec? Because I want to make a few additional points.
Why didn't you write them on the piece of paper so that we knew what was going on? Because people don't listen, they read.
Of course, and I think there's a huge amount of confusion between the code, the OIE code, which is the recommendation, versus the protocol. And as I say, code is a set of guidelines from which countries then can draw in terms of negotiating their protocol. And I think there's a grave danger that the world moves towards adopting the OIE code as a prescribed set of rules and therefore limiting the opportunity to negotiate. And there's a very good example that we currently have, whereas Mauritius, as a country importing South African horses primarily, is willing to deviate to a large extent away from the code in order to get horses into the country. Now, some might say that that's a bad example because they are taking far higher risks than they should be. Whereas on the other side of the coin, some countries will want South Africa to align themselves to the letter of the law when it comes to the code. So for me, the greatest concern is that the code, the OIE code, almost transplants the opportunity for countries to negotiate protocols. And that to me is something that we have to be extremely cautious about.
The code is what we live by. The code means that if there's an outbreak, we immediately quarantine ourselves from the rest of the world for X amount of months. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. The protocol, which is drawn up as a set of import conditions, let's use the EU as an example, which was ratified in 1997. Yes, they based their decision-making on the 1990 code. And based on an outbreak and their rules, if you were within 150 kilometers of your quarantine station, you were automatically shut down for 24 months, which we know has been the single biggest Achilles heel of the free zone concept. The shutting down for 24 months, 2 infectious cycles. And that was, I understand, based on the Barcelona Olympics, when they had that outbreak. It overwintered, or in fact, vaccinated horses using the live attenuated vaccine stimulated another outbreak. And therefore the world believed that in fact you had to have 2 infectious cycles to prove that the virus had eventually got out of the system. But in a South African context, where we know for a fact that this disease is seasonal, to have to sit through another high-risk season in order for you to apply to your trading partner, in this case the EU, to lift that suspension, unbundled our whole business model, our trading ability, we lost market share, and it was very difficult to recover.
I'm going to stop you there because we had an interview with Professor Ian Sana, who's now in charge of protocols as far as this country is concerned and codes.
Yeah.
And he was adamant that he has 4 pillars that he has to abide by and get through before we can change anything. Is he on the right track?
Well, look, let's go back to that export workshop strategy, of which we all attended. There was international representation from the scientific community, the veterinary community. We had Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, veterinary officials. And
so
we
had
industry.
All the right people.
We had all the right people there. And the conclusion of that workshop was that, one, we had an existing free zone. Therefore, if we enhanced surveillance and movement controls, which had been largely absent for many, many years. And that's a political will issue. Ultimately, disease control is managed by your veterinary services. And then we took the next step of converting Kenilworth Quarantine Station, which was a partial vector protected facility. In other words, it really enabled horses to come out during the day and exercise. But if you lock them up entirely, so you seal them from day one until the end of quarantine, you did all the exercise activities within that building, that might give importing countries more confidence to accept it. Plus, you've got your controlled area, so you know pretty much what's going on outside. I think it was a very sensible decision because it did enable countries to say, well, South Africa's taking the next step, which is within the code, but adding on top of that surveillance within the controlled area. But that was and so of the 4 pillars, that was, let's say, 1 and 2. The third one was that they certainly recognized the value of locking horses down from within the infected country. So it could be in KZN, it could be Johannesburg, it could be Lagos, Nairobi, it didn't matter. Where you are infected, you lock the horses up for a period of time, and you can prove that you've locked them up and they haven't been exposed to Kulakoidi's midge attack, and that you transfer them onto the aircraft in the same fashion, and that you arrive in the country of origin, of destination, that would satisfy the OIE. And then finally, I think the fourth thing that we needed to say was that the free zone concept could be moved to a place in the country where there was a far less likelihood of an outbreak, such as Springbok. Low midges, low horse movements, but no airport.
I just want to stop you there because there seems to me this glaring void between the perceptions of the African horse sickness disease. Okay, we have supposed free areas, which are not actually free areas. Okay, they're not proven to be free. Kulakoidi's midge, as they're called, can get into the free area and impregnate or whatever it does, bite a horse, and give it African horse sickness. No one can prove that. Okay, and this seems to be a big stumbling block. Why don't we just say, we got African horse sickness in South Africa, the whole of South Africa, but we're prepared to put our horses into a lockup facility, which is vector protected, being accepted by everyone all over the world, put it in there for a certain amount of time, do the tests on it, and send it out of there. Make sure that it gets on the aeroplane having not been bitten by a midge. That's got to be the answer. Now, Professor Sana was not of that view.
And I think the primary, put up the next slide, Raymond, because that will show basically the 2 options that South Africa has. Okay. We know the free zone, it's worked for 17 years, 50% of the time we've been suspended. The alternative, which is locking horses up, accepting that you're infected, and then proving continuous vector protection until delivery in the country of destination, which exists in the code. And if you
it does exist in the code, you say?
It does exist in the code. It's I think chapter 12.1.7.
12.17. Can I read it out here?
Yeah.
For a period of at least 14 days, and an agent identification test was carried out with negative results on the blood sample collected not less than 14 days after introduction into a vector-protected establishment, or for a period of at least 40 days and were vaccinated at least 40 days before shipment against all stereotypes where presence in the source population has been demonstrated through a surveillance program in accordance with Articles 12.1.12 and 12.1.13 and were identified in the accompanying certification as having been vaccinated. So those are the 2 points. The one point is that it's a 14-day. with
the
PCR,
use of the PCR correct?
test, okay. This is written into this code, and this code, if I may show you, is there. It's in black and white. Why aren't we going on that route?
Look, it's a publicly available document, so people can get onto the website of the OIE and draw it off for themselves. The greatest concern of the community who believes that we need to be pursuing with, let's say, the Western Cape structure in a different form is that there are no apparent countries that are willing to accept horses out of that on that basis.
I must stop you there. Are there no countries? Because the feedback we hear, and certainly Engelberg Bridges' letter, says they want to find solutions. The UAE, I'm certain, from what I've heard, want to find solutions. If this is a solution, are there no countries that want to go this route?
Well, if you look at, for example, the International Movement of Horses Committee, which effectively is the subcommittee of the International Federation of Horse Racing Authorities around the world, that is made up largely of, let's say, the new world, the old world, EU-based, the Americas, Australia, for example, the old established countries. But the world has changed. I mean, there are huge developments in equestrian industries around the world. You talk of Kazakhstan, potentially China down the line. You've got, just to name a few, the Middle East, which has got much more flexibility perhaps than the old established systems. Many of the older countries are very much EU aligned in their thinking. EU current philosophy is to prove that you can export, do all your pre-export requirements out of a free area. In order for the EU to change, they will have to basically replace their legislation, which allows for them a little bit more flexibility. We don't know when that's going to happen. So I'm saying to you, let's use as a very good example the USA, which for 60 years has been importing horses from Africa on the reversal of the lockdown, where they take care of the horses post-arrival. But they require no pre-export testing. They have no en route protection of their horses when they stop for refueling. Post-arrival at JFK Airport, there's no fly screens or anything on top of the jet stalls, if they have any. They're really interested in what happens once those horses are in quarantine. What the alternative recommendation of the OIE is that you reverse that and you do it pre-export. And really what you're saying is that you're proving two things. One, that you have continuous vector protection at all times until delivery. And secondly, that you're testing the horses with the best possible diagnostic test. And we believe that we're very close to a validated PCR test, which will then reduce the quarantine time to 14 days. We've said that so many times.
We've been close to this validated PCR test for a number of years, 2 or 3 years. Why haven't we got it?
Look, there have been numerous adjustments in terms of the code. There's a commission within the code that looks after certain testing. And that, you know, the goalposts have moved somewhat. I don't think it's worth going down that debate as long as we get the test validated that we can use as an internationally prescribed test. Then we can move forward to the reducing quarantine time. But the truth of the matter is, the USA have adopted this very methodology without any of the concerns that the majority of countries appear to be showing or expressing, which is the biggest risk as I can see it. I think it's very easy to develop a high-class facility with all the scientific methodologies of proving positive pressure, transferring horses from the end of quarantine onto the aircraft. So you've had a bubble, you now need to create another bubble, which is the transferring onto the aircraft. Once the doors are sealed on the aircraft, that's another bubble until you arrive in the country of destination. So for me, if Qatar can develop an indoor sporting complex with all the bells and whistles in terms of air conditioning and controls, you don't think South Africa can build a lockdown facility that can house between 50 and 100 horses with the modern technology that's available to us within the precinct of an airport. As I mentioned earlier, the airport could be anywhere. It doesn't have to be KZN. There happens to be political will within the KZN government.
Which is, just to stop you there, because people out there don't really know what you're talking about, but there is a very big move afoot in KZN to build this facility near the airport, obviously, and be able to export horses if we can get these protocols changed.
Absolutely. If you can find...
But Peter, just to go back one step, because I must ask you this question. For 10 years, okay, you sat on this council. And for 10 years, I remember sitting here and having this discussion with you 4 years ago, okay, and I asked you why we don't use the American system. Surely that's the right system. And at that date, we didn't have the problem that we have now, where if you send in a colt, it's got to cover a mare for 3 times or something because there's some type of infectious...
CM,
yeah. Okay, so that wasn't a problem, but we weren't keen to go that route then. Now we're suddenly keen to go that route. Why the change around?
I think there were 2 things. One, the 2011 Marmara outbreak, followed by the 2013 outbreak, followed by the 2014 outbreak, all in the Western Cape, followed by an EU inspection which really didn't show South Africa's controls in a very good light. And I'm talking surveillance, I'm talking movement control. Don't forget, you've got to manage an entire province virtually.
Oh, you've got to manage the whole Cape Horn.
We have been to the highest level in government in the Western Cape, who to date have not shown any practical desire to implement systems which are needed. Roadblocks, Metro Police stopping horse boxes, a proper surveillance system with testing and funding that comes with it.
Can you imagine that? Can you imagine you arrive with your polo ponies you've been playing in Vicksburg, okay, and the guy arrives and says, stops you in the road and says, now, where's all your papers?
And I don't mean to...
And where do you think the papers are? Well, you know, 100 Rand could get you through the roadblock. You know.
James,
so
I don't mean to decry.
What good is that?
I don't mean to decry the efforts that were put in place originally. And on a desktop plan, it obviously looked really, really good. But what has happened is that the Western Cape has grown its horse population from 6,000 to 15,500, according to the last census that we undertook on behalf of the government. So it is not as though the horse population and movements are going to remain stable. They're going to increase, if anything else. The reality of the matter is that we're infected. And we are infected from top to bottom, whether we like it or not. So the only practical way forward for me is to use the code to negotiate at a grassroots level with our trading partners, to really partner them in making sure that the building, the transfer onto the aircraft, the management of the aircraft en route is done in a proper and safe method, exactly as the OIE code recommends. Safe international trade. And I do believe that the KZN government, I have provided background support. It is something that I believe that the TBA members will benefit from, and I've addressed it with council. They don't necessarily endorse this at all, but they recognize the importance of continuing, because for the first time we've got political will to find a solution. As I said, it could be anywhere, this facility. It happens to be that the KZN government...
And you're well down the road with this.
We've had a meeting with the Deputy Minister of Agriculture, who has really instructed veterinary services to find a solution so that they can take it forward as an alternative solution to the Western Cape. And as I said, I want to make it very clear, we have no interest in stopping what's happening in the Western Cape. But at the same time, I think we should be looking very practically and pragmatically at a viable alternative, because the world is a different place. And I believe that there should be, if the USA have imported horses for 60 years and never introduced horse sickness, with no pre-export testing from infected areas such as Johannesburg, in the middle of summer, why on earth are we so reticent to believe in our own assistance in South Africa?
I know you're obviously a very good politician, but this point has been brought up all the way along this discussion. This discussion's been going on for many years. I know that I've been involved in the forefront of these discussions, and it's always been the same. We've got to have the free zone, and that's the way we're going to do it, and we've got to have road maps and all these type of things, because we need to know what the situation is. The other side of the coin, and this is now starting to come through very, very strongly from all people in the industry, to hell with all that. Let us make ourselves an infected area, because we're trying to make ourselves a non-infected area in some place. Make an infected area and set up a situation whereby we can export horses, having put them into a non-infected facility, guaranteed non-infected. It makes perfect sense.
You're on. Look, for me, I see it clearly. As I say, I saw the damage that we were 10 days away from shipping a full shipment of 33 horses to Europe in 2011, probably worth 50 to 60 million. 10 days away from shipping, we had the outbreak, we were shut down for 24 months. You know what the damage to our trade is. That is it is hard to explain the damage, both from a local perspective as well as your trading partners, your staff that are suddenly facing this financial cliff, as it were. I do believe that we should be seriously looking at finding trading partners to work with us. And if you take a vision,
on the
James,
lockdown facility,
logistics is often forgotten in the whole mix. If you take a vision of what should happen, let's assume that you have a hub in the Middle East, which is the central point. You can disperse them whichever way you want. You lock them down here for your 14 days. You transport them in a bubble to your next holding facility.
Correct. And then move
who holds them in the same health status.
Do tests again.
Do all the testing again. They spend another 14 days or 20 days, and you disperse them thereafter. Some will stay in the Middle East. Some will go on to Singapore. To me, that's the vision we should be pursuing.
I like it.
It's practical.
I like it. And I think on that point, we should actually just have a look at what's won from Magic Millions, and then we'll come back and just talk about breed affairs. Unannounced was our horse that won the Magic Millions Graduate. And I'm coming now straight back to you because we've got a couple of minutes to wrap, and we just want to talk about Thoroughbred Breeders Association business. And unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get Kevin Woolard, so we'll get him next week, hopefully. Yes. Talk about, obviously, what's going on from the TBA side of it.
Well, look, Kevin, James, it's a new role. Breed Affairs has always been part of the TBA's mix, but it has never really been pushed hard or focused on specifically. And I think that the whole TBA structure is evolving. Kevin is focusing on getting all the systems right. You know, we've had a decade or two of running the business in a very old-fashioned way, to put it kindly. So Kevin is focusing on getting systems. I think he's doing a great job, and ensuring that that the business is taken care of in the right fashion. So that's on that side. My side is Breed Affairs, and as I say, I've just recently had the pleasure and privilege of going around the country, visiting all the breeders who had nominated or entered horses on the National Yearling Sale. I'm going to complete the other studs that didn't have any on, and eventually gathering thoughts as to what really breeders want. But for me, it's simply defined as ensuring the sustainability and improvement of the business of breeding thoroughbreds in South Africa. And of course, we have international links, we have industry links, we have government links. So all of those factors or those issues will be packaged into an evolving role as time goes on. But I think there will eventually be a clear distinction between sales, which Kevin Woolard, with his corporate and financial background, and his team will manage, and I will look after breed affairs. There will obviously be some crossover, but really we want to make sure that thoroughbred breeding is able to grow as it should do in this incredible country.
We breed top horses, that's a fact. Do you think we will, in the near future, be able to get our top horses easily out this country? I always finish with a question because I think it is the only question worth answering.
For me, if you look at the way racing's going, which is not growing participation as we knew it, and we've spoken about it, unless there's a miraculous decision to transplant the Hong Kong Jockey Club model into South Africa, we will continue to rely on exports to generate or realize the value of our thoroughbreds. And as I say, having enjoyed, being part of looking at the whole country, you can understand why we have bred such incredible horses. The diversity from the Karoo to the Western Cape, which is run on a much smaller basis, to the KZN environment, Port Elizabeth. I mean, it's incredible diversity and incredible skills that our horsemen have developed. And really, that is a legacy that we need to hold on to and grow. And not forgetting that racing and thoroughbred breeding is only a small sector of this much bigger equestrian industry. So South African equestrian industry can significantly grow if we can internationalize and gain new markets.
Peter, it's always been a pleasure chatting to you. You're a font of information. As I say, you're probably one of the best political people in racing. And congratulations on your winner yesterday. Nice to see you and your partners.
We're not going to breed with her, by the way.
You're not exporting it either.
She'll be exported to a polo field shortly.
But well done on her, and you know, nice to see your continued participation, and we wish you all the best in your future. We know that this is going to be not an easy road, and we hope that you put it together, because with people like Peter Gibson, Professor Jan Sanna, Chris Van Niekerk, who we chatted to, the Thoroughbred Breeders Association, who are so integral to the proper running of breed affairs in South Africa, and the funding which they have done unstopping for the last 15 years, we can end up winning this battle. It's still a long war to go. But good luck to them all. And from me, James Goodman, and the Winning Ways team, until next week.